Welcome to OLC 4.0. This is term 2B. We are on class number 8. Today we are going to be looking at assignments A11 and A12 and prepositions. Today is April 28th, 2025, and this is Jillian Percy. Here are all the ways to contact us. The studio number is 1-800-465-7144. The office number is 1-800-667-3703, extension 2211. Keep in mind that our secretary goes home at 4:30, so past that point, it's harder to reach us on the phone. However, you can always reach me on email, jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. If you are also using Google, you can do it on jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. Some people like to use Facebook. My Facebook handle is capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. If you send me a Facebook message, please let me know your full name, what course you're in, and what assignment you are having problems with, so that I've had a time to take a look at your file, take a look at the assignment, so that I know for sure what we're talking about, and then I've got all my documents ready. If you want to look at previously recorded classes, there are 2 different YouTube channels. The school channel is called WASA Distance Education YouTube channel. That has all the courses from all the different teachers. However, it does not have the current copy of this course that I'm doing right now, because it's already on there from term 1A. We don't want to clutter it up. However, the current copy is on my teacher channel. So the teacher channel has the term 1A playlist for OLC 40 classes, and then it will also have term 2B playlist for OLC 40 classes. So if you work ahead of where we are right now, you can always check over on the term 1A. There are sometimes a few small differences from one assignment to the next. Just take a look at what you've actually got to be sure and follow whatever you've got. But it's significantly, it's more or less the same. Okay. Then, okay, whenever you hand in work, you're going to send it to the email of studentwork@nnec.on.ca rather than send it to me. This is where all homework goes. When this happens, the secretary can log that you submitted the work. That logging goes into the database so everybody can see, oh, the student handed in assignment 12. So if there's ever any question about it, we can check. The other thing is that if something were to happen to me, someone else took over the course, we can retrieve it that way. If it goes to my personal teaching email, no one else can get it but me. So that's one way to make sure that your work is always available. Please include your full name, the course name, the assignment name and number right on the paper that you do your assignment on. Not just in the email that you send, because I often don't see the email. I just see the paper copies that get printed off and put in my mailbox, and I go and pull out a bunch of papers. If there's nothing on there telling me who you are, I don't know who to give the marks to. If an assignment asks for both a rough and a good draft, please label which one is which, and generally include them both in the same email. Now, if you've got a rough draft and you want some commentary on it before you do the good draft, it's totally fine to hand it in to me and just write a little note saying, hey, let me know what you think, and that way I will do that. But let me know that it is the rough draft. Sometimes people just hand me in a draft and I don't know which one it's supposed to be. Sometimes they have different marking schemes. Sometimes they're worth different amounts, and I'm just kind of randomly guessing, and I really feel uncomfortable doing that. So how do you hand in assignments? All right. First of all, you can give it to the DEC at the Learning Center, ask them to scan it, and they can send it to me along to the student work address. You can also fax it to me, 1-800-463-7852. That's if you're in Ontario. Or if you are in the rest of Canada, 1-877-990-2023. You can email it to me with the assignment as an attachment. That's probably the most common way I get things. Some people also share documents with me through Google Docs. I can see for some reason, why have my numbers gone all wonky? Hang on a sec. It's driving me a little bit crazy there. Also, you can mail it to me. I don't recommend mailing it to me because things do get lost in the mail and it takes a while. If you do that, make sure to hang on to the originals. Some people also just take photographs of it and send me the photographs through Facebook or email. And I want to talk about that right now because this is the tricky one. Okay. If you take a photograph, it must be really clear and not blurry. Remember that your phone isn't really designed to take pictures of handwriting and typing. It's really meant for bigger objects. Okay. If you do it, it's better to write in pen or typing so it's dark enough to read. Pencil doesn't always show up very well on the photograph. You want to make sure your phone is parallel to the assignment so the writing doesn't get distorted. Don't just share it or cut it, paste it into the email. Instead, make sure to save it and send it as an attachment. Here's what I mean. On my phone, and I think most people's phone, you'll get the option of send it as an email or send it as an email attachment. Do the attachment version. And then in your subject line or in your message, you can say, hey, Jill, this is assignment number 13 for course OLC 40. This is Jane so-and-so. I am from this community and all that kind of stuff. That way I can easily print it off. Every now and again, I've had people try and put like 5 tiny little pictures on one 8 by 11 page. I can't read it because you have the original. You can always see it. But when I try and expand it, it'll just come out all pixelated and I won't be able to see it at all. So please make sure that you send me full-size copies of your pictures so I can actually read it. Now, a better version besides photographing it is instead to scan it. If you scan it, it's a lot like using your phone. You download a scanning app. I use Adobe Scan. It's free, it's reliable, it's easy to use. You install it, and then you open it up. And then you really just use it more or less like you're taking a picture. You put it over your page. You can see these little blue dots that kind of line up on the corners. You make sure you aren't including the borders of the table on there. Check and make sure it's not blurry. If it's blurry, you may need to redo it. And you repeat that for all the pages of the assignments. Then you would hit continue when you're done. At that point, it'll let you preview everything, put it in order, make any changes you want to make. Then you can save the PDF, give it a name. Obviously, you want to put the course name and the assignment number, especially if you take a lot of courses from us. You don't want to just say assignment 12 because you might take, 4 or 8 courses from us. And then save it, whether you're saving it to your Google Drive, your Dropbox, your phone, and that's when you would send me an attachment and an email for that. We are currently in week 3 of this 9-week course. Remember that the last day of this term is June 13. June 13 is reserved for exams only, and this course does not have an exam. So typically, the last day we can accept assignments is June 12th. Instead of an exam, this course has a long culminating activity, which will take between 5 to 10 hours to complete. It depends a little bit on how quickly you write and how quickly you read. Some people may do 5 rough drafts and then a final good draft. Some people whip it out in 2 versions. It really depends. I'm trying to give you as much time as you need, okay? But don't save this to the last day, especially if you are working full-time or you're a parent and so you're busy all day, you won't have enough time to get it finished, okay? Generally, once you start in on Unit 3 or Unit 4, it's a good idea to ask me for the culminating activity so you've got plenty of time to work on it because it's worth 20% of your overall grade, so it has a huge impact on your marks, okay? If you are one of our potential graduates for this June, I strongly recommend completing all assignments by May 30th so that I have time to do your marking and write up a report card. There are currently 134 students registered in this course, and there is no way I can do all the marking in one day if everybody decides to leave it to the end, okay? So our learning goals for today are to write complete and correct sentences, use punctuation correctly, including the ability to understand and use prepositions in a sentence. It says adverbs, but we've done adverbs. It is prepositions. Sorry. Construct personal reflections. Oh, I feel like this is kind of, I feel like my learning goals got a little bit mixed up here. I'm not sure what happened there. All right. I'm going to kind of move on from this because I don't quite think this is accurate, but I will leave it for the moment, okay? Writing complete and correct sentences, including the ability to understand and use prepositions and prepositional phrases in a sentence. So what is a preposition? A preposition is a word or several words that connect a noun or a pronoun to the rest of the sentence. The preposition will show what type of relationship that word has to the rest of the sentence. It may show the direction, time, place, location, spatial relationships, agency, measurement, or other types of relationships. Prepositions will come at the beginning of what is sometimes called a prepositional phrase, such as up the hill. Up the hill is the whole phrase. Up is the preposition. To the garage. To is the preposition. To the garage is the whole phrase. Occasionally, prepositional phrases will also be acting as an adverb phrase that describes or modifies the verb in some way. Basically, the same phrase is doing two jobs at once. I'm simplifying a little bit there. Here are some examples of prepositional phrases in a sentence. June went to the store. To is our preposition, to the store is the phrase. The squirrel ran down the tree. Down is the preposition and it's connecting the tree to the rest of the sentence. The raging river spilled over the rocks. Over is our preposition, connecting the rocks to the rest of the sentence. I walked home with my best friend Carrie. With is the preposition, and it's linking my best friend Carrie to the rest of the sentence. I need to buy 2 meters of fabric for the skirt. Here we have two prepositional phrases. The first one is of fabric, and then for the skirt. And now it doesn't always have to be after the verb. This is what's happening right now, right? There's the verb and then it's coming after. Sometimes the prepositional phrase will get moved to the beginning of the sentence to try and get you an idea of the relationship before you even dive into the sentence. So for example, on Tuesday, you have a dentist appointment. Above the house, dark clouds lurked threateningly. And then this next one has two phrases. Due to rain, the outdoor concert was delayed for 2 hours. So those are just some examples of how they will sound, okay? So the different types of relationships. Time, it will show time or when something happens. Place and location, where someone or something is located. Some people have these as completely separate things, but I found that a bit confusing, so I just put them together. Direction usually shows the direction or movement of a person or a thing, and it's usually used with verbs that show motion. Agent indicates the agent who did the action. Instrument shows what instrument or tool is used to do something. Manner indicates the way or how something was done. Purpose shows the reason or the purpose for something. Possession shows the ownership or possession of something. And then source or origin shows the origin or source of something. We're only going to be doing about half of this today, and then we'll cover the other half tomorrow. Otherwise, it'll be too much at once. Okay, so starting with ownership or belonging. Belonging could be belonging to a club or belonging to some sort of group, okay? So the car was given to her. There is my phrase. To is my preposition. This gift is for Dad. For is my preposition, and the whole thing for Dad is my prepositional phrase. The house was built by my grandfather. So in this sense, the house is kind of belonging to the grandfather. The textbooks belong to the school. To is a preposition. The whole phrase is to the school. I am a leader in the group. In is our preposition. In the group is the phrase. I have a membership with the club. With is the preposition. With the club is the phrase. She made it on the cheerleading team. On is our preposition, and on the cheerleading team is the entire phrase. Okay, so now here is one for time. Time is a tricky one. There are actually so many different prepositions we use to convey a sense of time because they all have slightly different meanings. So during, we use the word during when something else is happening at the same time. Like we stayed at a student hostel during the conference. For is when you're just kind of listing a period of time, like I'm just going to bed for 2 hours or so. Until or till is saying that you're doing this up until a certain time. We'll wait till 6:30 for you. Till is kind of the short form. Since refers back to a point in time when something began, like 40 years have passed away since they met. From or to is giving you a starting point and an ending point for something. Her visit will extend from Monday to Thursday. Ago is also referring to how far back in time something happened. He left the house over an hour ago. Since and ago are very similar, but since is when something began, ago is kind of when it happened in the past. Before, any time previous to the current point in time, she's always up before dawn. By, not later than. He promised be back by 5 o'clock, like not later than 5 o'clock. After is when we're looking at a clock and the minute hand is going after the hour. Um, oh, or later in time. I felt fairly relaxed after taking the medicine. I was thinking more of like 15 minutes after 3, either one. 2 is when it's before the hour. It's a quarter to 2. We also use past for after the hour. It's 5 minutes past 10. Between and are talking about a time that has 2 points. They lived in New York between 1998 and 2004. It's a lot like from and to. Within is where there's a certain span of time and everything happened in that time. Like, you should receive a reply within 7 days. So here are some prepositions of time. Oh, sorry, I just realized they were actually already chosen. Well, I am going to be difficult and go through and kind of take them out just so we can kind of practice them real quick. My apologies. What I need to do is not write them. Okay. Hang on a second. Okay. So here we'll just kind of, you know what, we'll circle them. That'll make it a bit easier. Blank, winter, the snow will be deep. In winter, the snow will be deep. We can't say on winter because you can't climb on top of it. And you can't say since because that's implying a beginning, and we don't really have beginning there. I always go camping something the summer, to the summer, at the summer, during the summer. During is the correct one. He likes to work out, blank, he goes to work. Since he goes to work, at he goes to work, before he goes to work. Before is the one that makes sense there. It is 10 minutes from 3, ago 3, or to 3. Has to be 2. We wouldn't say from 3. School starts blank 9 o'clock. Since 9 o'clock, during 9 o'clock, or at. That's the precise time that it starts. You will get your check in the mail within blank business days. Oh, sorry, that one I didn't take away. So we will do this and erase this for next time. All right. It's only been 3 weeks, blank, I started chemo. Since I started chemo, before I started chemo, for I started chemo, since, right? It started and it's still continuing. I'm going to grab a nap, blank, half an hour. During half an hour, for half an hour, until half an hour. For is the one that makes sense there. Okay, these are prepositions of location. This is usually if you're trying to describe where something is, like you're trying to help somebody find something, right? Like the keys are on the table, and we both know which table. The bread is behind the milk. The rake is against the shed. The garden hose is around back of the house. The ketchup should be between the mustard and the mayo. These are all words where you're trying to explain where an object is located, essentially. Some examples would be in, on, at, by, near, nearby, above or below, over or under, up or down, around, through or inside, outside or outside of, between, beside, beyond, in front of, in back of, behind, next to, on top of, within, beneath, underneath, among, along, or against. Okay. Prepositions of measurement. These are kind of ones I didn't think about before, but it's where we're explaining how much we want of a certain item. Like I want a pound of butter. So pound is the measurement, and I want that of butter. You were the winner by a few seconds. Get 2 burgers for $10. Newborns often weigh between 6 to 10 pounds. I want to buy a meter of green cotton. So measurement isn't just length, right? We can measure time, money, weight, mass, temperature. We can be super exact, like run to the 1 mile mark. Or we can be estimating or approximate, like we need about 5 pounds of potatoes. Then we've got ones that are a little not as common. Agency. An agency is who's done something. The house was built by a famous architect. He dug the hole with a backhoe. Then we have prepositions of origin. Where is it from or who built it? The pot is made of copper. That's what it's built of. He is from Norway. I'm going to say origin and material here, I think. Sorry. That makes more sense. Okay. And then instrument is like what tool you did a job with. He hit the nail with the hammer. He wrote his novel on the computer. The car runs on electricity. She traveled via the subway. The wood is held together by screws. The sound waves are carried through the wires. He finished the painting with a palette knife. Okay, so the book was written blank Nora Roberts, for Nora Roberts, by Nora Roberts, or because of. I'm gonna, okay, again, still use, yep, by, oh, let me do it. Hang on. Let's try that. By Nora Roberts, that works. He fixed the door blank duct tape, with duct tape, by duct tape, or for, with, that was his tool. He is originally blank the Ukraine, from the Ukraine. All the animation was completed blank computer, to the computer, by computer, or as computer, by the computer. The solo in the song was done blank flute, from flute, to flute, with flute. The cars were shipped blank Germany, by Germany, from Germany, or for Germany. I'm going to say from. Now, technically, Germany might have shipped the cars, but it would be weird because generally cars would be shipped by a business, not by a country. The temperature dipped blank 0 degrees, from 0 degrees to 0 degrees with. I'm going to say 2. That makes the most sense to me. Please get 2 pounds blank steak, with steak, of steak, or for steak. Of. My doctor's appointment was blank 2:30, from 2:30, at 2:30, or with 2:30, at 2:30. Okay. So now we're going to be using our knowledge of the structure of news reports to identify the sequence of events and main ideas. I can explain the purpose and uses of news reports. So basically, we're going to be reading a news report and then answering a question about it. Okay. So I don't know if we've talked about this before. I don't think we haven't yet in this course. All writing is considered to have 3 main purposes. One is to entertain, something that's written for fun, to amuse or interest people, like a mystery story, a love song, a funny play script. Second, to persuade people, to convince people of a certain opinion or a way of thinking, or to take certain actions, like a letter to the editor protesting a new law, an advertisement trying to convince you to buy something, or an opinion essay arguing to support a certain idea or action. Or it can be to inform people, to tell people about events, to teach people how to do something, or to explain an idea or concept. For example, a history textbook explaining a war, an article in a magazine explaining a new scientific discovery, a news article reporting on recent events. So generally, a news article is going to be informing people about stuff. Now, news articles have their own unique format, and a lot of people don't realize that. It's not necessarily one of the things talked about in grade school. So it's different than personal narratives, which a lot of times is what we're most used to writing about. Personal narratives you write in a chronological format. That means often you write and tell about events in the same order as they occurred. First, I went to the mall. Then I went grocery shopping. After that, I went home and made supper. Informational articles are often presented where you give the main idea first and then you add a bunch of supporting details. News articles are written in a completely different way. They're written in order of importance. So all the really important things are mentioned very first in the lead paragraph, and then they slowly add some more important details and then less important details. Okay? That's called the inverted triangle format, and we're going to talk about that. Now, I wanted to mention one thing. Occasionally, some people will get confused and think that everything you see in a newspaper is a news article. But that is not true. There is all different types of writing in news articles. The one thing I find these days is it used to be really well labeled. Like you knew opinion columns are in the center on this section. These days, I find for some reason it's kind of all mixed up, and you may have to look really carefully to see, is this an opinion column or is it an article or is it actually an ad written as if it were a news article? You have to be a little bit cautious. So a newspaper might have letters from the people that read it expressing their opinion on different articles. It might contain ads trying to persuade you to buy goods or services or advertising jobs. It may contain opinion columns from writers expressing their opinion on current affairs, new laws, new trends. Newspapers may contain comics designed to entertain people, classified advertisements about houses, apartments, jobs. They may contain obituary notices, birth notices, grad notices, or retirement notices. And there may be reviews of movies, restaurants, events that express the writer's opinion. It's important to be aware that not all the writing you see in a newspaper is automatically a news article. It may not be. News articles generally have the main purpose of informing their readers, but the other types of writing in a newspaper may have other purposes. Okay, so here is the inverted pyramid writing format. For some reason, this is a major writing format for the course. This is not my choice, by the way. This is a government thing. I'm not sure why, but they really want students to be able to read and write news articles, okay? I think mainly reading the news is a major element of being a responsible citizen and an important element of mastering literacy skills. And if you aren't aware that it's a different format, you might find them kind of confusing. So, okay, so that's just kind of talking about the portfolio at the end. You're going to be using a news article in your portfolio for sure. Okay, when you call a friend or text a friend, you often will tell them the most important or interesting details first, like, hey, did you hear on Friday night Jessica broke up with Chad at the dance because he cheated on her? And then, oh, really? And then you go in and explain all the details. That's kind of how a news article works. Up top is going to be a lead paragraph of 2 or 3 sentences that has all the most important information: who, what, where, why, when, and how. Then the middle section will kind of expand on all the details. Might be a lot of details, might be not so many. And then at the very end, they'll put the least important details. One of the reasons for this is because for news editors, a lot of times there might be last minute important news. And to squeeze it in, what they would do is they would cut the last little bit of a story off. So newspaper reporters got used to making sure the last little bit of their story is stuff that if it gets cut off, it's not going to affect your ability to understand the story. Okay? That's kind of the reason for all that. So the lead is at the top or the beginning of the news article. It is always the most important information about the story or the event condensed down to its bare bones. It'll answer who. This is naming the subject of the story. The who can be a person, but it could also be a group or a building or a concept or a contest, anything about which a story can be written. What is happening or what happened? When when did it happen? That is not always a single thing. Like if there has been protests for an entire year, they might tell you, the protests started in March of 2024. They have continued until last night when a major protest, blah, blah, blah. So it isn't always like it happened at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. It may be more general than that. Where did this take place? Sometimes that's not obvious, right? It might be it took place at an office, outside, in a building, in legislature. Um, that one can be a tricky one. You'll have to kind of read closely for that. Why? Why is it happening? Sometimes they might also include why is this important? And then how is it happening? Like if they're describing a protest, how is the protest organized? How are people protesting? Are they marching in the street? Are they staging a sit-in? Are they boycotting a manufacturer's goods? There's lots of different ways for something to occur, and they want you to explain how it happened. So, if you were retelling the story of the three bears, the lead paragraph might sound like this. Papa Bear and his family returned to their home in the woods to discover a burglar had entered the unlocked home, vandalized and destroyed furniture, then fell asleep. Upon discovery, the female burglar, who has yet to be identified, jumped out the window and escaped. Then there would be a space and they would add all the more important details. But the basics are right there in that first paragraph. Who? Papa Bear and his family. What? They were vandalized and their food was stolen. Where? At their house. When? Yesterday morning. Why? Unknown, possibly for the food. How? Well, the door was left unlocked so the vandal entered easily. Now, they didn't say all this part. They just said entered the unlocked home. You have to kind of uh, use your wisdom to understand that's what they're trying to get across, okay? So now, the more important facts or details might be expanded upon here, okay? Now, if you are someone who skims the paper, a lot of people do, you might just read that first paragraph and go, I don't care about this, and you wouldn't read anymore. Or you might be like, oh my gosh, I live in that area. I want to hear all about this burglary. And so then you would read more for more details. Yesterday morning, Papa Bear went out for a walk in the woods with his family, Mama Bear and Baby Bear, in order to have a healthy walk before they ate their too-hot breakfast. Unfortunately, they forgot to lock the door, which allowed the vandal easy entry to their house. It is unknown why the vandal destroyed furniture, ate food, and then fell asleep. Mama Bear said, "It was a shock to go upstairs and find the burglar still there. We were so scared." Police officer Wiley Fox said, "We see this all the time these days. It was probably drugs. Possibly the suspect got confused and entered the wrong house. Or she might be homeless and living on the streets." The suspect is described as young, female, Caucasian, with long blonde hair, wearing a light blue dress. And then at the bottom would be kind of less important facts, things that could be cut and you would still understand the story. Anyone seeing a person who matches this description is asked to call Crime Stoppers at 1-700-555-1234. As well, anyone who has information regarding this crime should call. Caller's identity remains anonymous. Officer Fox reminds all residents of the woods to lock their house when leaving, as there have been many break-ins recently. So you can see that's told very differently from how you would tell the story to a child, right? The tone is different. The order is different. It's just not told the same way. So this is an article about a competition called Pow Wow Idol. And we're going to read it and then you're going to answer questions. So the title of the article is called Pow Wow Idol includes Nova Scotia and Ontario finalists. And then there's a little picture of it. And it says, August 4th, 2019. Two Canadian contenders are among the finalists in Pow Wow Idol, an online competition to find the best unsigned First Nations drum group in North America. The competition is in its 9th round in a tribe called Micmac of Millbrook, Nova Scotia, and the Chippewa Travelers of South Central Ontario are still in the running. They are competing against a group from Maine, the sole American-based survivor of 12 drum groups, which entered the competition in January. Now, as you're reading, it can be really important to understand vocabulary. And I'm saying this because I have found consistently this word contender causes a lot of confusion. What is a contender? A contender is somebody who competes for a championship. So if there were five hockey teams in a tournament, they're all contenders. If there's 100 people running in the race, there are 100 contenders. But then by the quarterfinals, there's only four or something. It's not the name of a person, and you should not use the word contender to answer who in the questions that follow, because contender isn't the name of a person, right? It's the description of a person, okay? What do you think they mean when they say an unsigned First Nations drum group? If you're not sure, try and look that up and think about it. When you say unsigned, who is signing them? Why would they be unsigned? What does that mean? Okay, here's the rest of the story. The competition combines the digital with the traditional. All the groups have competed with victory or veteran songs, fancy shawl or fancy feature songs, two-step songs, and a round dance. All the performances are online as audio files, and judging is also over the internet. A tribe called Micmac has been playing together for over a year and decided to take a chance when it entered Powwow Idol. Michael Stevens, 27, the group's drumkeeper, said he doesn't know why they've done so well in the competition. Everyone has their own unique sound and their own unique way of singing, Stevens told CBC News. Each drum is special in its own way, I guess. So we are very fortunate and blessed we have made it this far. Their Facebook page is flooded with good wishes from supporters in their Nova Scotia community. They are passing on their experience to even younger musicians on the First Nation, among them Justin Stewart Muse, 10, who was at a recent practice session. It's awesome. It's smart. It inspires me to think good thoughts, he said, as the group pounded a traditional drum with one hand and squeezed their throats with the other to help them hit the high notes. Chippewa Travelers are a northern-style drum group who started singing together in 1998. The more than 15 members come from Rama, Sarnia, Alderville, and other southern Ontario communities. They'll find out late Sunday or early Monday if they move on to the final round of the competition. A winner will be announced in early June. Now, I want to talk about something. Why is Google underlining all these words in red? Are they really spelled wrong? Why didn't I fix it? No, it's not. Google is not 100% right. People are always surprised to hear this. Google, Google does not always recognize unusual names of people or places, especially if it is in a foreign language. So then it decides it must be a spelling mistake and it will underline it. You don't necessarily have to change every single thing that gets underlined just because Google says so. Some of the reasons that things might get underlined are foreign languages, okay? Different countries. This sounds funny, but like how we spell some words and how America spells some words are a little bit different. Hang on, I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller just so it all fits on here. Hang on. There we go. Okay, the other thing is customs change. So sometimes, like when I was growing up, I was used to certain things being hyphenated, and now they don't like to hyphenate them anymore. It's not wrong, right? Google's just being fussy and saying, oh, it's wrong. It doesn't, you know, if you're not sure, look it up in the dictionary. Please do not blindly trust Google. It is a computer. It is not God. It does not count as having the final say on everything, okay? So before we get into how to answer the questions, I want to remind you of RAP or RAP Rock, which we talked about back in, I think, assignment 6 or 7. And that was a lengthy way to extend your answers when you're unsure what to say. And I'm saying this because sometimes people will give me one-word answers for this assignment, and then they don't get the full 2 marks. If you're correct, but you just wrote one word, I don't give you all the marks. You'll get one of the marks. It's actually possible to have the entire thing correct and barely pass the course, that particular assignment. Okay, so R is for restate, A is for answer, P is prove, which means give evidence from the text or from your own experience. So let's say I ask a question like, what is your favorite color? My favorite color is, I'm restating, purple, that's my answer, and I'm proving it because it makes me think of magical things like unicorns or witches. If I was answering from the text, I might say, their favorite color is purple because it reminds them of good times with their gookum, or whatever I was trying to say, okay? So it's important to answer in complete sentences. What is the purpose of this news report? Is it to persuade, to inform, or to entertain? Explain your answer. We have talked about it today, and it is in the unit. Remember that every piece of writing has one main purpose. What is the purpose of this report? Be sure to write in a complete sentence. For example, the purpose of this news report is blah, 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 because explain why you think so. Number 2, who do you think is the intended audience for this news reports? Okay, a lot of people want to say everyone, but in real life, that's rarely true, right? If the newspaper's in the house, in my house, for example, what I'm going to read might be completely different than what my husband might read. It might be completely different from what my son might read. And if my grandma happened to be visiting, what my grandma might read, right? I might be looking at educational articles and maybe stuff about books. My husband might be reading about American politics. My son might be reading the comics. My grandma might be reading obituaries. So it's never everybody, okay? It always has an audience, all right? So think about who would be interested in knowing about this particular competition, okay? There's not just one right answer, but I don't take everybody, okay? The most important questions a good news report answers are the 5 W's and H. Using the report, complete the following incomplete sentences. Who is the story about? Remember to think not just one or two people, the entire story. What are the important facts about this event? You don't need to rewrite the entire article, but what's the most important facts about what's going on? When did this event begin and when does it end? A lot of people try to just use the date at the beginning of the story, but that just tells you when the story was written. It doesn't tell you when the event happened. And like we talked about, some events may happen over a period of time, not just on one certain day. So if a reporter was writing about the Ukrainian-Russian war, for example, they might have to mention events that happened over several months or even several years. Where is the event occurring? Remember that where it can be answered in a variety of ways. Really think about this one for this particular article. Sometimes people look at where one thing is happening instead of where the entire event is happening, okay? Mm, Same thing. Oh, why is the event occurring? What's the purpose? What are they trying to do? What's the goal? Okay. And then how are they organizing the event? This can sometimes be a kind of a tricky one. What are the steps or the stages of the event? How are the people involved or participating in it? It might take a few sentences to describe. Okay. So then we're going to move on to um, just kind of the very basics of, hang on, of the intro to assignment 12. We're not going to get to the actual assignment because we're running out of time, but we'll talk about that tomorrow, okay? The big thing is we're going to start talking about how to use the writing process to create and organize your ideas, produce first drafts, revised drafts, and final pieces. This is a major goal of the course, and I really go into a lot of detail in this. Sometimes people get frustrated. It's like so much detail. They're like, oh my gosh, why is this taking so long? It's because I'm trying to go slow and teach you how to do it, okay? A lot of people may have been out of school for years, or you may not necessarily have had great writing teachers. A lot of teachers don't necessarily feel comfortable teaching writing, and they may kind of skimp on it. So if you only, for example, wrote journals in school, then you had a teacher who maybe didn't feel very confident about teaching writing, and maybe they didn't do a very good job. So that's why I'm kind of trying to slow down and talk about it in detail, okay? So We talk about the writing process, or sometimes we say writing stages. Basically, they're a description of the steps or the activities that are involved in writing any kind of text, okay? It's just an organized way to tackle any writing text. And I find that when students begin to use it, they produce much stronger writing. Okay, there are 5 main stages. The first one is pre-writing or planning. In this stage, you're going to gather and generate ideas on the subject. The main idea is just to get the ideas flowing, put them on paper. There's different ways you can do this. Sometimes there's mapping, there's brainstorming. I love using graphic organizers, all sorts of ways people do this. And then number 2 is drafting or doing your first draft. This is where you take all your notes and ideas and begin to actually put it into sentence and paragraph format and write your first draft. It may not be perfect writing at this point. It's your first ideas. You're going to go back through and revise it and make it better. That's stage 3, revising. You go through, you see if the ideas flow smoothly. Does it make sense? Do you need to change it? Add things, replace things, cut things out? If you use a computer, this can be done very easily. If you handwrite, it's a little bit harder, but it can still easily be done. Okay. And then we have editing. A lot of people get editing and revising mixed up. Revising is where you're changing the ideas and how you say things. Editing is where you're looking at those little tiny, finicky, itty bitty mistakes. Things like, oh, I spelled that word with an E when it should have been an A. Or, oh, I forgot to put a capital letter here and I need to fix that. Or, oh, I forgot to put a period at the end of the sentence. This is nitpicky stuff. We leave it to the end because there's no point going through it all at the beginning if you're going to do a lot of changes. And the final stage is we call publishing. For our course, a lot of times publishing is just sending it in to me. But if you're a professional author, publishing might be it gets printed in the newspaper. You create a book, you put out the movie, whatever it is. Now, this is not what they call a linear process. It isn't like I do all my planning and then I write my entire first draft and then I do all my revisions and then I do all my editing and all my publishing. No, I might plan it and then start writing and realize, oh, I forgot to plan a part. I got to go back and do some more planning. And then I put it down and come back to it and I start to revise it and realize, oh, wait, I need to do a little bit more planning. I'm going to go back and do some other things. It's a circular process, right? Or a spider web. We go back and forth, okay? And the reason we talk about this is because a lot of students have it in their head that professional writers sit down and have an entire story in their head, perfectly formed, and they write it out perfectly the first time, right? So if you're thinking like the novel The Hunger Games, right? Suzanne Collins, I believe, wrote that. So she didn't just sit down and whip out a 350-page novel off the top of her head. She probably spent months making notes, writing pictures, researching things, reading articles, doing little character ideas. Then started to like, oh, hey, how am I going to do the plot? And then she began to write, right? It's a slow process. Now, we're not writing a novel, so for us, it's a lot faster. But I just want people to move away from the idea that the first thing you write is perfect or has to be perfect. Because what I find is then people can't get started at all, right? They're so nervous about it not being perfect, they just can't even start writing. So that's one of the things we're going to be really working on in this course. And I find that the more people use the writing process and the writing stages, the more comfortable they become and the more confident they become about their writing. And it makes it so much easier to sit down and write rather than when you get that kind of terrified feeling because you're staring at a blank page and you're worried you got to produce the most perfect piece of writing ever. Okay? Our time is up. I will talk about this some more tomorrow. If you have any questions, reach out to me, send me an email. I'd be happy to hear from you. Good luck with everything.